session with Napapol Giatsakchokchai, or as I know him, Nung. He's a former Muay Thai fighter who actually had more success in Western boxing, but he is completely adept at training and teaching Muay Thai as much as he is in boxing. But what I really love is how he teaches and how he moves in his boxing experience. He was known as one of the 4 lions of Thailand back when he was fighting for WBC championship belts and things like this. That was very big names. Weerapon was among them, as well as Yodsanan. Yodsanan Sidyotong is in the Muay Thai Library. You can go study him in his session. He was a very accomplished boxer as well. And so Napapol Giatsakchokchai is in that same group of fighters from the 90s and early 2000s. I've known Nung for quite a few years because I used to train up at in Chiang Mai at Lana Muay Thai Gym, and before he was a trainer there, and he just has this very notable style that has so much power in its accuracy. If I were to make a comparison to the kind of power that Nung generates, you know those little pins that you use to break a window by using just the tip of it if you drive your car into a lake or something? That's what his knuckles feel like, is just absolute accuracy creating window shattering pressure. He has this incredible way of relaxing his hand and punching with it. So he will teach me that in this session. Pay attention to his body forms and weight transfers and overall shapes. I kind of struggle in the session, which is usually good for these long form training sessions that we use for the Muay Thai Library, because seeing the student struggle, you get a lot of correction and you get to see a lot of kind of reaffirmation of what he's trying to teach. So watch Nung's overall shapes, and I hope you guys enjoy this because I really liked learning Napapol Giatsakchokchai's style, or Nung. So the first thing that Nung did was work me through a little bit of stretches. This is something that you'll often get in private sessions, just because they're used to going through an entire set of things with students. I used to really hate it, actually. I hate stretching, but I've actually started to really like it because I like to see what people have you stretch. So he's basically starting out with our arms. We're putting our arms over our head and pulling our elbows towards the center of our heads to get triceps and lats, and then some neck stretches, just kind of pulling from side to side. I like that he's not overly involved in it. It's pretty relaxing, just kind of getting ready to warm up for what we're going to be doing. This one is actually really good where you pull the back of your head down for your chin. If you force your head back up, it becomes a neck exercise for clinching. So you can start out in a stretch and turn it into a neck exercise for clinching. And of course, it makes sense for a boxer to be rolling the shoulders out because you're going to be doing a lot of loose shoulder boxing. One of my favorite things about Western style boxing is watching the shadow boxing of these fighters and how loose and popping their shoulders are. It's just swinging our arms out in front, again, just loosening up the shoulders, getting a full range of motion to warm everything up and stretch it out. This is something also, stretching the shoulders and the arms is a really big part of Yod Kumpan. You can also see him in the Muay Thai Library. He's the elbow hunter of 100 stitches. So he's not a boxer, but because he's throwing elbows endlessly, that's also a looseness in the shoulder, the same as boxers. I find that comparison really interesting because I think as a beginner you tend to think that the power comes from the shoulder itself. But when the shoulder itself is really loose, the power is more of a whipping motion. So being able to have flexibility and looseness in your shoulders for the power of your punches or your elbows is just in and of itself indicative of how you should be paying attention to what your trainer is teaching you. I am unable to lay backwards when your feet are under you. That's stretching your quads. I do not have flexible quads and hips. But these stretches that Nung is having us go through open up the hips in a really nice way, which is good for the fact that as a boxer you need to have really strong legs and you need to be moving. Something that I kind of struggled with in this session, and maybe all sessions, is that I just don't move relaxed enough. And so having flexibility in your hips and strength in your legs has a lot to do with your ability to move around quickly. This one again is actually opening up your hips and your quads. We're kind of like in a mermaid type pose with our feet up in the air. I've never done this stretch before in my life, but it actually felt pretty good. It stretched out the abs as well. And then this is kind of like a hurdler's stretch where you have one leg curled under you and the other one outstretched to the side, and you switch sides as you reach towards the extended leg. It's mostly like a hamstring calf kind of warm-up. While I think that my lack of flexibility is really funny, it's worth pointing out that you do not have to be really flexible in static stretching in order to do dynamic movements. This is something that Andy Thompson, who's in the Muay Thai Library, and he is the late Andy Thompson now, so he was a huge part of my start in Muay Thai and a very dear mentor to me. Something that he taught me was that even if you're not flexible in static stretches, you can still like kick over your head with the dynamic movement of like just flinging your leg into the air. So what we're doing here, we're just starting to shadow box. This kind of thing I have more flexibility in than static stretches. So if you're inflexible like me, be flexible in this part. Right away, the very first thing you can see that Nung is teaching me, look at his feet, his knees, and his chest. This is how he comes forward with power. He has this kind of like rocking, diving motion. He's punching into my palm, and if you watch my face, the way I flinch, it's painful. He's showing the difference between this like rocking your weight forward like he's diving forward versus just using your arm. Like just extending your arm has no power in it. This is something that I remember from way back in the day. Look at the shape of his hand and look at where he's throwing it from. His fist is at his eyebrow, but he brings his whole body forward as the punch is coming out. I'm twisting. He doesn't twist so much. Like his body twists a little bit because his weight transfers onto the front leg and he kind of comes outside the line. But he like dives forward a little bit, and see how his arm is not even fully extended as he's making contact? And the shape of his hand, it's open a little bit. He's hitting with the front two knuckles, that part's important, but his hand is just kind of like relaxed. Oh, it hurts so bad. And it's not slow. Like I was really slow because I was trying to like bring my chest and dive forward and do the motion. But look at him shake his hand out. He's like, you don't need to make a full fist. Like you don't need to clench your fist. See how he shakes it out and it's loose? You can see my response for how badly that's hurting my palm. But he's saying that you want to have a strong wrist, but you don't need to have a strong hand. So the hand is firm, but it's more or less open. Like it's pretty relaxed. But the firmness of the wrist is what allows the accuracy of his knuckles hitting to have so much power behind it. This reminds me of Sifu McGinnis, who's in the Muay Thai Library, and he taught me about bare-fisted punching and how you actually build up the power of your fist itself by punching bare-fisted. It feels similar to what Nung is teaching me about the firmness of the wrist being what carries the power behind everything. He wants my hand up higher. He really wants the punch to originate from basically my eyebrow. And you can see again, I'm twisting a whole lot. Watch his legs and his hips. He does not twist a whole lot, but see how he's behind his shoulder at the extension of the punch? So he's protected, which is really important if you're going to be coming in with your head and your chest the way he dives in. If you're diving in, if you're not behind your shoulder, it's not a good move. Like, you can't dive in with your head floating. Even the way that he meets my hands when he's like holding his hands as pads, you can see how relaxed he is in like catching the punches with his body. His body is very easily moving back and forward. So here he's showing me that you can basically block with your elbow. So if someone's trying to uppercut you, you just kind of twist your front side a little bit forward to catch their hand with your elbow as it's coming up the center. It's a very nasty little block. But another way to do it, he's also having me just get out of the way. So I'm basically just leaning back and rocking my weight back onto my back foot in order to evade the punch altogether. So you either catch it with your elbow or just get out of the way. Look at his weight as he does that uppercut. You can see it start from his legs and it just floats up. It like kind of bounces up. He's trying to get some combinations out of me, but he wants me to feel the flow of them. I do not have that feeling. But you can see how it would flow together like that when he does it, because you can see how his weight shifts between his feet. So here he's just having me do jab, cross, uppercuts and hooks, and he's catching them with his palms. But he wants me to, in every punch, be kind of like leaning my weight forward. Look at his front leg though. He does not peg leg his front leg. Look at the flexibility and the bend in that knee. That's what allows him to be fast while having pretty dynamic movements, and it brings his whole body weight behind his punches. So there's that blocking with the elbow for the uppercut. See how he uses the twist on the block to set up for his other punch to follow. So he wants me to do it with my front arm instead of my back arm, because if I block with my front arm, then my power side is the answer afterwards, whereas if I block with my back arm, I basically have a jab or a hook on the other side of it. I'm asking him about my back foot. My back foot twists a lot, and I don't see his doing that. See how he bends his knees in order to bring his weight forward, but he's not super twisting his back foot? I love when he pauses at the end of that extension so you can really see the shape of it. He leaves his back foot back. That's something that Sagat, you can watch him in the Muay Thai Library. He was like, nail your back foot to the floor. See how he's not dragging it forward? But if he needs to come forward with his punches, it will follow. But it's not a like step drag kind of pattern, which allows him to be able to move backwards and still fire with power as well. Look how long that damn punch is, my God. He's like, don't fully extend it because then you have to start your power over to pull it back. Not like that. That's too far. But see how his whole his body is like, if you see a coil with like a weight on the end of it, the coil goes forward and then the coil itself springs back because the power generated by moving in one direction necessarily will generate the power to move back. That's what his body does. He never goes to the full extension because then he's stuck. I'm noticing the bend in his front leg. He's saying if you put too much weight on your front leg and it's too straight, people can just kick it out. This is something that if you learn boxing from Muay Thai from a boxer, they know how leg kicks work. That's not the punch. He's making fun of that punch. See how it's just his arm and he's kind of like flicking it? There. His chest comes forward. He's using this word in Thai. It's called yok. Yok means a number of things based on the pronunciation. Yok can mean to lift something, and it can also mean to like rock back and forth, like to sway. So he's using it in that sense. So if you have a trainer who's like yoke, 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 they want you to move. It's like that Muay Thai rhythm. And again, see how he's shaking his hands out? He wants the hands to be really loose. He's like, you don't want tension in your hands. It makes you slow. Oh, God, look at that. He doesn't keep his elbows all tucked in close to his body the way that Sagat and Chakchai do. Sagat Pet Yindi and Chakchai Sasakun are both in the Muay Thai Library. They both teach amazing, powerful punches, and they keep their elbows really tight to the ribs. This is a different style. Nung's are kind of like, it's almost like his shoulders are on a hanger, which allow his elbows to kind of be at a very neutral position. But because his body is generating a lot of the power by coming forward, it centers all of that power without having to send it from being really close to the ribs. Here he's saying that I'm turning too much. If you turn all the way like this, you're done. So instead of twisting, yoke. Yoke, again, is that like rock forward. When he throws that hook, look at where his weight is on his front leg. See what his back leg does? And his front leg does when he throws that hook. Oh. All his energy comes from the chest coming forward for that cross, and then the twist for the hook comes as a continuation of that weight transfer. He kept making me use my palm to feel the difference in power and the difference in like kind of pushing a punch versus rocking forward. I can feel the difference, and if you guys watch my eyes flinching from the pain, you can see the difference too. But look at the difference in his body posture if he's like pushing the punch versus if he's rocking forward with the punch, which has flexibility in it all the time. He was frustrated by me constantly taking punches just with a guard. He wanted me to be able to dodge them as well. The reason I can't dodge them is because I lack flexibility in my legs when I'm throwing punches like this. The reason he can like spring forward and back and kind of like have all of that bending in his torso is because of the bend in his legs. So he's putting kicks into it. People think that there's a huge difference between boxing and Muay Thai and that you have to like totally change your hip positions and that they don't go together. They totally go together. The weight transfers are all the same. See how he rocks forward with those punches, and then because the weight is on his front leg, he's totally ready to send that right kick. Oh, look at that. So he's starting from his eyebrow and kind of rocking forward to throw that right cross. But he comes offline as his weight moves over onto his front leg off the center line. This is his right cross that's a little bit like an overhand, but it just has an arc to it. It's not really an overhand. Look how relaxed he is. One of the things that I struggled with because of this weight transfer coming forward is how close his front leg gets to me when he's actually throwing that. He stays really, really close. This is something that boxing for Muay Thai people, I think, don't pay enough attention to, is that your front leg needs to be stepping on your opponent all the time if you want to be using a lot of boxing in Muay Thai. Look at the distance he's covering by his front leg moving in like that.
It comes with it together. Yeah.
So the punch is originating from the eyebrow, but the whole body bends forward with it. That's why I call it diving. He's like, not that. He's like, it's fast, but it's not powerful.
Yeah.
When the chest comes, it's fast and powerful. Look at that dive he does. He shows his hand moving off of his eyebrow and kind of like coming down like a... If you shot an arrow into the air, it goes up and then down. It's like got this little arc to it. That's what his right cross has. Now he wants me to move forward and backwards with these things. It's a whole different game. Like, you can punch on a spot, but then when you have to have footwork to go with it, that's when you really have to understand weight transfer. So he's having me throw kicks as well to like work it into Muay Thai, but he wants me to have this flexibility to dodge out of the way, and then when the opponent has thrown with their power and they're off balance, that's when you can counter. That's one of the reasons why dodging instead of blocking in is that you allow your opponent to get off balance and hit them when they're off balance, whereas if you just take the strike but with a really good block, because they're making contact, they're more or less on balance for your counter after you've taken the blow. Watch his feet. So he's having me get out of the way of his jab. This is just slipping. This is like boxing slipping. But look at the difference in the way that he slips to the side versus the way I do it. I kind of go backwards a little bit. He does not do that. He stays in and just goes totally sideways. This is the same thing as like habitually when you're getting out of the way of something, taking a step back, like using distance as defense. He doesn't do that. He stays in and just puts his weight over his back foot, but to the side. Look at him go totally sideways. Oh, but then he takes a step in for the counter. So you like put your weight over your back leg, but to the side, and then you step forward with your front foot and just come over their strike with that hook. My God. Tell you there's no way to defend that because you just punched. Like, you're done. You fired your shot already. So he's slipping outside of my jab, which is into my complete blind spot. Like, there's no way for me to attack him on that side, other than maybe if I brought my front leg up as a head kick. But because I've already got my arm extended, there's no power on it. So see how he's having me slip to the side and fire that punch while his arm is still extended. So you're like kind of coming over it. So I get really still while I'm throwing punches, and then I'm like, oh, I have to move after. That's a big difference in really understanding how these weight transfers work, is that your feet can move while you're throwing the punches. Like, there's not a distinct gear switch between having footwork and moving and punching. Oh, look at the like flow of him stepping towards my back leg and then bending towards me with that hook. The flexibility in his legs is just incredible. So here he's showing me his hook. Look at the trajectory of his hook. Chai Sasakun in the Muay Thai Library also teaches a hook like this, where it kind of like comes up and bends down. You're basically punching down as the hook is landing. This allows you to go over somebody's guard, around someone's guard, over someone's punch. Like it makes sense in a like trajectory sense. But because it comes up and comes down, it also has more power because you're punching down. Look at how he constantly puts his hand on his chest to show me what I'm doing wrong. It's like, look at where his weight is, whether he's leaning forward or whether his chest is twisting. He said don't be gang, which is like too tense. Like don't tense up your arm. You're basically hooking pretty relaxed. There's a swing to it, but watch his legs as he does it because that's where the power's coming from. Again, he's shaking out his hand and he's like, don't have a tense hand. His thumb is pointed towards himself. When the thumb is up, Kevin and I call it the coffee cup. It's like you're holding a coffee cup. He turns it because his elbow comes up a little bit. So his thumb is pointed towards himself. It's not really up. Again, he's like, make your wrist strong. The wrist is strong, but the hand is more or less just shaped. Like it's not tense. See how he has it go up and down? He's holding my wrist now and just firing the shot into his own palm. He wants me to feel the like up and down as it like, if you picture a baseball landing into a catcher's mitt, they cradle it, like the mitt cradles the ball. You want your fist to be that ball finding its little cradle, like it's coming down. Look at how he swings. He swings out and then crashes into my hand, but his elbow's not going wide, it's just lifting a little bit. His thumb is pointed up there as he's landing, but he's rolling it as he twists.
He stepped very deep too.
He steps really deep too. His front foot comes really close to me when he's throwing that hook, which allows him to actually kind of sway backwards as the hook is landing. So he's kind of like pulling the punch through you. Watch his feet. See how I'm staying the same distance all the time because my feet don't move? So like, I'm throwing my punches, but I'm not actually covering any distance because my feet are refusing to move. Whereas every time he throws a punch, his feet are moving somewhere. Even if they stay in the same spot, they're stepping. Look at him take his progressive steps into me with that combination. So it's like a jab, hook, and cross. Look at his front leg. His front leg is what carries those three punches. And then on the cross, you're rocking your chest forward. I keep wanting to block his uppercut with my right elbow. Again, the reason he wants it with the front elbow is so that you can cross afterwards. he's like putting his arms out in this like sweeping me backwards, like shooing me backwards, because he wants me to have both forward and backward movement. Look at him shake his hand out every time. It's like, do not tense up your hand. Oh. Jab, uppercut, cross. And his front foot is just inching towards me with every single punch. Look at his weight after that uppercut. See how he's still kind of, he's got his weight back a little bit so that he can crash forward with the cross. Like he's kind of saving it with each punch until he can get to the cross. His right hand just stays on his eyebrow all the time, ready for that cross. He was telling me that I was dropping my hand. That was his correction. But when he left it there, he was showing me how you basically like keep your gun in its holster until you whip it out, and that's his cross. Look at his footwork here. So he's showing me how to like pivot off to the side. And as you're pivoting, it allows you to, in someone's blind spot, use that weight transfer to throw a really powerful punch in their blind spot.
He does.
But look at him even switch stance a little bit as he's taking one or two steps back to get back into his regular stance. But it's very relaxed, very even.
He steps
look at
back.
his feet.
He steps back, straight back.
See how his foot even like angles itself before he steps with
straight
the
back
other
into his
foot,
other
so that
stance.
when he pivots, he's landing more or less
Yeah.
in the stance that he started in. I'm slightly confused because I'm like, are you actually switching stance or not? Because he basically just takes another step in order to get into his regular stance. But when you pivot, if you find yourself in the opposite stance, you just throw whatever side is behind you. He's playing the bull, like he's basically just charging at me, and I just need to pivot out to the side and feel the distance, and from that distance you decide what you're going to throw. See how he's no way of defending himself because I've pivoted to the outside of his front foot. God, even these tiny little shifts as he's like catching my punches, you can see where his weight shifts on his legs. If you watch his legs and his hips, you can see where his weight is all the time. So relaxed. Everything sets up for that right cross. He's just throwing jabs and crosses at me now. But you can feel how relaxed his hands are. He's shaking him out right now because he knows what I'm talking about. Look at him imitate when you're like having tense fists. That's what he feels. If you tense your fists, he can feel how it just like clogs up the entire machine. It's like putting gum in a clock. He's like, by having your hands be loose and your wrists tight, you have all of this flexibility. You have like all of this speed. Oh, that uppercut, my God. Watch his feet. See how he like, I'm saying that in Muay Thai, the inside, the center of someone is always open, but look at how he steps so deep with his front leg and does not peg leg it. He's got flexibility in his knee. When he steps, his weight leans over his front foot, but slightly to the outside. It's important to note, though, he's not... If you watch the Giatsakchokchai sessions, I talk about blowing out your lines, like not getting outside of your frame. That's basically if you like lean over your leg too much. He's still over his leg, like his head is not to the outside of his leg. He's still over his leg, not blowing out his line. He's still in his frame, but he's off line, like he's not in the center of me. You can see the difference in what he's doing and what I'm doing. I'm going outside my frame, so I'm off balance as I'm trying to throw that punch, or I'm off balance before throwing the punch. He's on balance all the time because his weight is directly over his leg, even if his head is slightly outside of it. He's showing me all the different options, right? So I can slip outside of his jab. I can like dodge backwards. I can block it. The difference in being comfortable between all of those options and not is being on balance. Like when you slip, if you're on balance, you slipped good. If you slip and you like are starting from off balance because you like leaned way too far over your leg, slip is not the best option there. Here he's just blocking with his arm coming forward. He's like parrying the arm up and then crossing out of it. I immediately regretted this question. I asked him, how do you punch the body? And even if he's not punching hard, it's so terrifying. But he has a similar thing. He's like, you don't want to be like diving down. You basically squat and throw across. So like get low and throw across. Oh, goddamn. He is not even really touching me, and it's terrible. You have to be close. obviously. But look at how, because he steps so close with his front leg and dives forward like that, and his weight is coming down, he has room to spare. If I try to get out of the way, he actually can extend farther. But he's saying if you stand upright and try to punch down, you can just get hooked in the face. So we just did like 25 minutes of no gloves, and now he's like put some gloves on, which I didn't have. But it goes to show how much technique you can learn that's not hitting pads. Like, I'm just throwing punches into his fists. And all of that is the mechanics of balance, weight transfer, how close your foot is. Like, all of those things come before putting gloves on so that you can smash into a pad as hard as you possibly can. Like, there's an order to how the mechanics work, and the mechanics work without any kind of like, I'm going to hit you as hard as I can.
Being hit by a crowbar, the end of a crowbar.
His fists feel like being smacked with the like curved back end of a crowbar. It's so powerful and painful.
Yeah.
So I'm explaining to Kevin what he was saying to me, that like the wrist is strong, but the hand is basically just curved.
But he bends his wrist a slight bit.
So I'm making this comparison to Chokchai. In the patron sessions with Chokchai, you can learn about how he squeezes his fist at the very last second before he punches.
One notices that you develop.
Nung doesn't do that. Nung doesn't squeeze his hand ever. He kind of like rocks or like rolls the hand down a very slight bit as he's hitting with those front knuckles, but his hand stays in its molded shape, more or less exactly the way it starts and finishes. He doesn't really make a fist at all. An interesting thing, if you watch the session with Sifu McGinnis, he talks about the importance of the shape of the hand on impact, and especially if you're in a glove, you have less control over the shape of your hand. So if you're squeezing your hands all the time, you have to be able to squeeze inside a glove. So the shape that Nung's hands are when he punches is basically the shape that they're in a glove in. Look at his feet. Look at his knees. Oh. He loves that right cross. So I know that right cross is coming, but I don't know when, like ever, because of the way that he moves his feet and his body. He's like, cover your belly so I can punch you with my mitts. It does nothing. The mitts do nothing. Like, those gloves are not helping me at all. He's showing how if you float your head, you can just get nailed. That's why he dives with his head forward. You get really low so that if someone's trying to swing at you while you're throwing that body punch, you're protected. Like, they're going to hit the top of your head. They're not going to hit you in the face. Look at where my front foot goes versus where his front foot goes when he throws that cross. He's keeping me honest by swatting me in the face while I do that, because I'm not actually diving forward properly. Look at that position. That's the position you want to get. His ass is back and he's not stepping towards me. That's the problem with what he's doing right there. You basically want to like be spearing through somebody. Look at his legs.
The hand and the fist come together.
It's all in his legs.
I mean, no, the head and the fist come together.
The head and the fist go together. They're one piece. And they come together.
They come together. They're one piece.
Like diving.
Like diving. Yeah.
It's totally like diving into a pool. Not that. I like see him do it 10 times. And then I think I'm doing it. And it's because you have to be able to see the overall shape, but you really have to look at where his feet are and like feel the way his whole body kind of dives forward. It's a feeling. It's not seeing it and doing it. You feel what it must feel like the way he's doing it and try to imitate that. So he wants me to stay on the body, right? So like if you throw a right body cross, you then want to throw a hook. Like you want to stay on the body for a little bit. This reminded me of Sagat. If you watch, I think the first session with Sagat in the Muay Thai Library, he teaches his awful tiger uppercut to the body. He's hitting my floating ribs, and it comes up a little bit. He's like, if you come to the side, you're going to hit someone's arm and hurt yourself. That's why you kind of dig up. Dig up, stupid. Ugh. Watch him grab my hand and like create the little shiv. So he's saying yoke, which means he wants me to rock to the side first and then bring all my weight forward and up with that hook. Incidentally, that's the same angle that your knee makes when you're kneeing someone's body. See how he wants this rhythm between everything? Like he does not want a distinction between punching and moving. He's like, go. He's like totally shooing me backwards. He's like, have flexibility to move forward and backwards. I'm punching with just my arms. I think I'm moving my chest, but my chest can't actually come the way it's supposed to because I'm not moving my front leg the way that he does. You have to step with that front leg in order for the chest to dive forward instead of just like bending forward. And this is brilliant. If you add teeps into your boxing, you're now a complete Muay Thai fighter. Like, teeps and boxing is smart. It's amazing. Oh, see, there's this whole hierarchy of like punches lose to knees, knees lose to kicks, all this stuff. When you see him showing that knee submarining under someone's punches, that's why punches lose to knees. Is because you just submarine your knee underneath those punches in exactly the same trajectory that that uppercut is to the body. Look at how he even floats on one foot for a little bit when he's like swatting at me. You would not really do that unless you were like dancing around in a boxing match, but it goes to show where his weight is. He brings his weight so much onto his front leg, and then his back leg is basically working as a rudder to kind of like keep him in place. Oh. That does not work if your front leg is straight, but look at how much distance he covers because of the bend in it. I discovered in doing my pad work with him that I have a very deep habit of throwing my right cross as the last thing. And because he never let me do that, it was really indicative of, even though he believes in his right cross so strongly, like that's what he's hunting for and that's what he's waiting for all the time, he doesn't end with it. Like you throw that power punch, but then you've got a hook or an uppercut or a pivot or something on the other side of it. So I'm throwing these double uppercuts into the body and totally letting my guard drop. Again, he leaves his right hand at his eyebrow all the time. It's like it's Velcro stuck there. So he's saying yoke dua. He means sway your body to the outside so that you're basically winding up for those body punches. Winding up should not be your arm. Your arm doesn't wind up. Your body winds up. It's like you're twisting your body in order to generate the springing power to spring back in the opposite direction. It's like a coil. This looks better. Like it looks fast and strong. So I can be like, I'm awesome on the pads. But the reason it's not awesome is I'm watching my legs, and my legs are not doing what his legs are doing, which is constantly stepping towards that front foot and having flexibility in my own front foot in order to be able to go forward and backwards really easily. I'm cheating. I'm like throwing punches really hard, and so they like generate a little bit of power. But if I weren't throwing hard and actually just bringing my legs with me, I would have more power with less effort. So he wants me to like dodge underneath. And because I've dodged underneath, I've kind of like swung my body out to the right. So I should throw the right cross first and then hook and cross. That's what I was talking about how you're basically like using the coil and the recoil together. So because I dodged underneath and came to the right, I throw my right cross. If you go the opposite way, you throw your left hip. Look at his legs. It's all in the legs. This is the like seductive thing about learning from someone where you like pay attention to the wrong thing. If you're learning from a boxer, you're like, I'm gonna watch his hands because it's punches. That's like watching a bullet to figure out how to aim a gun. It makes absolutely no sense. Like everyone who watches anything about actual marksmen, they talk about how it's all in the squeeze. Accuracy and firing a bullet is all in breathing and the squeeze. I'm sitting here watching a bullet. He's a puncher, so you're like, look where his hands are. And that's why I'm like throwing punches hard, but not actually having any flexibility, because the squeeze is in his legs and his knees. That's how he generates all his power and distance. Look at how close his front leg is getting to me. He's holding pads, he's not even hitting me. And he's putting his feet like right on my feet. Oh. The distance he covers with that uppercut, so pretty. See how I have to start over all the time? Like I can throw two, like the uppercut and the cross, but then I have not coiled. Like I've not thought of the cross as being a coil so that the like recoil of the hook comes right after. Basically, it could be like endless chains if I actually felt where my weight was. Here he's starting back. He showed me this very, very early. It's that same thing. Look at how he's coming from his eyebrow, and his elbow is out a little bit, but it's able to be out because his whole chest is coming forward and then over his front leg. Look at that. Not this. See how he keeps his weight back and only throws his punch when he's making fun of me? But then everything goes over his front foot when he's actually throwing his right cross. It's beautiful. I'm actually throwing with pretty good turn and power on that, but I'm not covering enough distance because I'm not stepping forward with my with my front leg. Look where his head goes. He's saying don't throw your ass back while you're throwing it. Look where his head goes. So he's saying if you're too close, you can actually still get your cross off by like hollowing out your chest to create space for the punch to land as though you were farther away. He doesn't take a step back in order to throw the punch. He hollows out his chest in order to create the distance that he needs for power on it. It's awesome. There again is that like, because I'm stepping forward and throwing my weight onto my front leg with that cross, I'm doing it in a way that doesn't have flexibility. So I have to finish on the cross because I've basically like overextended myself and have to use energy to come off of it. He extends but has flexibility in his front leg, so he can pull back without having to like restart the engine to go backwards. There's that like, if you're gonna dip under, realize where your weight went so that you're springing back from where you ended up. Look how wide his arms go. His arms are allowed to go that wide because of the stance he has with his feet and his body moving.
Because he keeps his foot under his head as he goes forward. Look at his head and his foot.
He's not off balance
Look at his head
because
and
his legs are under his head.
Yeah.
If your head goes too far over your feet, you're off balance and you're overextended. See how my foot went my head went way outside of my foot? He doesn't do that. He keeps his head over his foot. Oh! He can just stay there all day and just keep fucking punishing my body. See how my head doesn't know where it is? Like it doesn't know how to stay over the knee and the hip. He's over his knee and his foot right there. If you drew a straight line from his heel to his knee to his head, it'd be perfectly in line. Look at the flex in his back foot too. He even took a couple of steps towards me because I started falling backwards as I was getting punched in the stomach. And he's able to follow me with these like mini steps because he was on balance. I'm able to use the like dodge back if it's semi-choreographed. But I don't feel how to use that bend back as a dodge because I lack the flexibility in my knees that he has. Karahat does the same thing. Karahat has this super long body punch. It's not powerful, but it comes out of nowhere, so you're not prepared for it. You can watch Karahat many times in the Muay Thai Library, but when he comes in and punches the body, the flexibility in his legs is what allows him to get off of it really fast. Because Nung steps in so close, he's delivering power with his body shot, whereas Karahat's really delivering surprise with his.
One piece.
So here he's making a point about protecting on your front side as you come in for the body punch. Like, make sure you have your guard up. And then he's swinging at me, and I'm just going under it. That's why you squat and more or less fire right cross as you would if you were standing up. I'm getting more and more stressed as this goes, which gives me less flexibility in my legs. I would actually, if I just focused on my legs, let the punches be whatever they want. But if I was like, I'm going to punch with my legs, all of this would be easier. I would have much less tension in my shoulders and my arms. So he wanted a right punch there. I'm confused because I'm actually, as I dodge, I'm coming out to the right. That's why I throw my right cross, is because of where my weight ended up. But see how there's like a whole combination that follows. Like, once you get into the body, stay in there and throw as many punches as you can. Look at how his weight goes back when he dodges. He actually doesn't move his feet at all. The reason the dodge back is actually quite nice is because it loads that right cross, whereas if I stay in, I don't have a lot of transfer in the weight to carry the power. So look at my legs as I'm trying to come towards him. I can't punch and move like that at the same time. Like, the way that I move forward makes it so I can't punch and come forward at the same time. He's adding kicks in. This is now Muay Thai pad work. But the way that I was moving for punches should be the same way I'm moving for my kicks. See how close he steps with his front leg in order to deliver that kick? He's like, if you step to the center of someone's guard, your kick is too far to the outside. So he's basically stepping towards my back leg and wants me to be doing the same. You'll hear a lot of people tell you to step out for a kick. He does that for his punches as well. He steps out, and then that right cross coming from his eyebrow is bringing his weight onto that front leg, That is precisely how you're supposed to be kicking. That's why boxing and Muay Thai, weight transfer wise, is very, very, very consistent. Fucking hell. That hook. It's basically an overhand right when someone's arm is already extended. So he wants me to teep a lot, which again works for any style of Muay Thai. But he's basically just going to be interrupting me, like trying to annoy my legs. If someone is annoying your legs, you punch, or you annoy their legs and then you punch. Like, it's basically an up-down kind of thing. I'm just punching with my arms again because I'm like totally dissociating my legs with my punches. He's like, put them back together, like what we were doing with our punches with stepping forward and bringing your whole body. That's how you kick. You can't just kick and leave your weight back. So the way you punch should be the way you kick. The way you kick should be the way you punch. See how that hook sets up for his weight coming forward on that cross? I keep dropping my hands. Look at his legs, look at his legs. See how he steps forward for that hook? And then because his foot is so close to me, all his weight can flow forward onto his front leg for that cross. I'm having a difficulty with ranges here. Because we've gone into Muay Thai pad work, you have more ranges than you have in punches when you're just like jabbing, crossing, and hooking. Real boxers have all kinds of ranges because they like cut angles and things like this. But when you're doing Muay Thai, you have teep and kick, which are the longest, and then you have like elbows and knees, which are the closest. But basically, all the footwork we were just doing for his jabs, crosses, and hooks, all that footwork works perfectly for all the different distances of Muay Thai strikes. I'm going to do totally different footwork because now we're doing Muay Thai. But the footwork should be the same. So see how he wants me to dive forward for the right cross to the body, but then since you're already there, like you've brought all your weight forward, you're already close to them. That's why he wants the elbow to follow that. He moves nice. I like how he like creates obstacles at each of those different distances. So he's basically, if you're a puncher or a knee fighter, or even if you like elbows, your whole game is getting close. So he's firing teeps at me to try to keep me out. So you basically just have to like get the teep out of the way as part of your weight transfer coming forward. It's like part of the exact same body diving forward. You just move the teep out of the way first. This I really liked. So when you catch the kick and you're going to fire a body shot, he's like, don't leave your damn body back and throw the punch like this. Throw the punch the way you were throwing the body punch when we were just boxing. Like, you dive forward. You've got them on one leg anyway, and you're fucking holding one in the air. There's not a lot they can do. They can try to hook you with that back arm, but you're diving forward and slamming the open part of their body with your cross. Here he's talking about the flexibility of movement. This is like all the being relaxed and able to move on a dime, basically. If you're tense, it makes you really slow and non-responsive. So that's one of the reasons, finding where your tension is. Like if you're a fighter who holds their fist tight all the time, it's possible that that tension sets up for all your movement. Like Mu, who's in the Muay Thai Library, he likes his fists being tense all the time because that tension sets up for other things he's doing. Nung, by having loose hands but tight wrists, the tension in the wrist is setting up for something because it creates looseness in other places. basically the game of relaxation and tension in Muay Thai is where is the tension. Don't make it everywhere, but tension in one place makes you relaxed in another, and relaxation in one place makes you tense in another. It's totally a necessary trade-off, and you just have to be aware of the good and bad of that. This is my range, so I was happy to get into my range a little bit, but because I don't have the forward-backward flexibility in my knees, I can just stay in. Like, I don't have the like flex out, flex in that would actually create a lot more diversity at my short range. That's a good thing you can learn from boxers. If you're a short range fighter, the flexibility in their legs and the way that they create distance at very short distance is helpful for all the weapons you have at short range. See how when he knees, his weight comes back so that he can throw that kick? If you throw a knee and you're off balance and you're like stumbling as you land, it's the same weight transfer issue of where your head is in relation to your knee and your foot as it would be if you're off balance on a punch. It's totally the same thing. I was getting a little frustrated because I could feel where I was off balance, but I couldn't identify it enough to calm down and fix it. Knowing that you're off balance is a really, really big deal. Just knowing it is good. Figuring out then where it is, not why it is, but where it is the next step, and then you can start fixing it. But I'm like having a pity party in the middle of this session for a second. This is Nung's wife. I knew her up at Lana as well. They have a daughter named Nongjin who's very sweet. I think she's probably like 15 now, which is crazy. She was like little when I met her. I haven't seen Nung in many years, so he's asking me like how long I've been. So again, I love to just stand in and block because I'm a tank, but by practicing being able to dodge back, it's actually training the kind of flexibility that I want. Even if I never ever become a like dodge back fighter, which I do in fights a little bit, having that flexibility in the legs is something worth training anyway. But I'm super tense because I'm getting frustrated, so watch his legs. Watch the flexibility he has in moving forward and backward, even as a pad holder. This is how you create range. Like, if you're a backwards fighter at times in your fight, you do that by doing what he's doing as a pad holder. See how he's like pulling me towards him all the time? This ability to have offense and defense as like a toggle instead of like you're either doing offense or defense all the time, like they kind of flow together. This is something that's what allows you to be relaxed all the time versus only relaxed when you're hitting someone, and then when you're getting hit you're like totally tense. The same thing that I've been talking about how if you like dip under the arm or you like block with your elbow, how you basically have like put stress in the coil so that it can spring back in the opposite direction. That's what your defense should feel like. Like anytime you're blocking something, you should basically feel like it's the coil that allows for the spring to come after. So this is turning someone in the clinch, right? So you want them to be off balance. That's what he was showing me before about when you dodge someone, they're off balance for when you strike rather than if you block, because they've hit you, they're still on balance. When you're in the clinch and you're like pulling someone to the side, you're making them off balance before you throw your shot. So you have a much better point, like a much cleaner point. See how he's setting up as a pad man? He's setting up for my power cross. Look at how far back he holds his pad. He is not a pad holder who's gonna like jam his pad into my arm, like meet me halfway. He's actually pulling his arm way back, which goes to show how he feels that right cross. It covers so much distance that you're actually like punching through somebody. There. Finally understood that body cross going under. I think because I'm getting a little bit tired and stressed, and because I'm a Muay Thai fighter, so I like to be close, I'm actually starting to step towards him more than I was when I was like trying to do what he's telling me to do, which is allowing a lot of the things that he was teaching me to come out in this round more than they were in the last one. It's literally just where my foot is. So see how you can just use the teep, anything the opponent is doing to try to like come after you, you can juggle them with the teep until you're ready to throw whatever you wanted to throw. This is the same thing in knee form of what he was showing me when you punch the body, you get as many body punches in while you're in there as you can. The thing about kneeing in the clinch is you want to throw as many knees as you possibly can while you're already in there, which is one of the reasons if you watch Yod Kun Pan or Diesel Noi or Yod Wicha, all of whom are in the Muay Thai Library, they teach the no lean back knee. That's because you can keep throwing the knee without coming back out or having to reset. So where Nung puts his front leg allows him to throw multiple punches without coming back out. Here's just a pivot off, right? So he's like hitting my guard. So if I'm coming forward with my like block out, he's basically like just parrying my guard, not even a punch, to step out and angle off. So he's just making this into a burn drill that I actually didn't understand. So he wants me to punch and kick twice, which I just figured out. This is actually an excellent drill for building symmetry and balance coming off of your kicks and punches. Andy Thompson, who I talked about earlier, brilliant at coming up with drills like that to build balance and symmetry. So I'm actually just shadowboxing while Nung went to get something. One, this is an excellent habit to build if you're going to be training in Thailand or really anywhere in the world. If you work with someone and they teach you something and you start working on it on your own immediately, they see that you're sincere and they'll teach you more. But you also need to start building in your own feeling for anything that you just learned, because everything you learn is feeling. It's feeling.
Finish it and then give a little kiss.
If you learn something from your trainer about like where your weight should be, start building in, not looking in the mirror, feeling where that weight is on your legs, your hips. See how I'm like hunched over? Like the shapes that I'm making are actually not the shapes he makes at all. So while I'm shadowboxing immediately after learning these things from him, I'm trying to like get into my body the feeling of those things that he was doing.
One round
But
sparring.
being able to look at him and see the shapes to kind of calibrate it is really important as well.
Don't try, play.
So the end of our
Water
session
over
was him
stone,
saying
baby.
we'll do 1 round of
That's all it
sparring,
is.
which ended up being like 10
Water
minutes.
over a stone.
But this is brilliant. In what I was just saying about how you immediately want to start shadow boxing to like feel it, going into sparring, as long as you don't like stress yourself out and be like, I have to do well, you're going into like just feel it, like just play with all of the tools that you just learned. When you start sparring with pressure, you're going to revert back to things that you're used to, habits that you already have, things that you already knew, things like that. But if you turn it into play, like trying to feel like I'm just going to track his foot or something like that, you'll get more out of what you just learned in terms of like immediately putting it into the practice. Here he's showing me how to use that spike guard. Because now we're boxing, so basically I want him to be punching my elbow. And it allows me to stay close, which I like, because I'm always trying to be close. My foot is actually coming closer to him than it was the entire time we were working prior to this. Which I don't know if that was because I had started to figure it out in our training, or because I have older habits about getting that foot closer. He's not hitting me hard, but he doesn't have to. Like, he's so accurate that it sucks. Like, it's very frustrating to get hit by him anywhere because of the accuracy of it. It kind of has a like sting to it because of the accuracy. Look at where my hands go. He keeps his hands up at his eyebrows all the time unless he's at a distance where he can be relaxed like this. But the second he steps within range, his hands are up at his eyebrows. You don't have to be in like RoboCop guard all the time. If you're out of range, you can totally do this like dance around that he's doing with his hands. But you need to understand where your distance is, so the very second you step forward into the striking distance, you're in your guard. See how I don't know what to do with my arms? That's what he was showing me before, when he was actually showing me the like uppercut, hook, cross, and his weight was coming forward. Look at where his foot goes every single time he punches me. Like, watch this sparring part a bunch of times and just watch his legs. After you've watched his legs a couple of times, start watching his hips and then like move your way up. Because basically, for any of the stuff that he's taught me to work, it's the entire alignment. Like, you have to look at the whole alignment for his personal style of this like weight coming forward with the chest to make sense. If you don't do what his legs and knees are doing, it doesn't make sense to do what he's doing with his chest. And likewise, if you're watching a different boxing instructor who has a different thing, like they turn a whole lot, you have to look at where their feet and their hips and their knees and their shoulders are in order to understand why that turning is doing what it's doing. Here he's telling me to tuck my chin. He's like, if you get hit on the crown, it doesn't do anything. Don't float your chin, because not only will you get hit in the chin, but you get hit in the face. Basically, you can block with the top of your head, which is something that my trainer Crew New has me do as well. But it's a good habit to keep your chest down anyway. I mean, your chin down. God, the distance he covers. He looks like he's not close enough, and then he just is. He's even pulled his gloves way far forward so that his fists are actually still in the wrists, so the like whole front part of his glove is just air. And he's smacking me with that. I have better flexibility in my legs than I had earlier, which is good. But if you look at the difference between what I call flexibility in my guard because of how I normally am, and the flexibility in his legs, he can actually bring his feet close together at times, and he's not off balance or susceptible to being slammed while his feet are too close together. Whereas even when my legs are quite far apart because I don't have the flexibility in them, I'm a little bit wonk. Like, my head is not over my knee, so I'm off balance myself, whereas he's constantly on balance no matter where he is. because the alignment of his heel to his knee to his shoulder to his head is all in line all the time. I like that guard that he does. He basically like straightens his front arm and just like puts his back arm over his jaw. One of the things that sparring really, really helps you with is understanding where your patterns are. So the way I was saying earlier that I realized that I just finish with a right cross all the time, like I have nothing off of my right cross. When you start chaining everything together in sparring, and I don't mean combinations, I don't mean like a 1, 2, 3, 1 through 5 combination. I mean actually feeling where your weight is, and so you can like constantly keep striking. This is something that you can't really learn in any other context. You can kind of do it in shadow boxing, but under pressure, because someone is moving in front of you, feeling where your weight is and knowing exactly what the strike is that can come out of that, it takes you out of being a combination fighter and puts you in a like string of consciousness type fighting. That's what he's doing. I'm starting to get frustrated just because I'm getting hit in the face so much. So he's saying Chai Changwat. This means use rhythm and timing. Changwat. Changwat is the word that means rhythm and timing. He's basically telling me what I was just saying about how you feel where your weight is, and so you can just like endlessly chain together these strikes. He wants me to fake a little bit. He wants me to like feel where he is. So if he's just hit me, I should know where his opening is. What he's doing right now, this is Jangwat. Like his up down, this is not a set combination. This is seeing where I am, seeing where I'm open, seeing where he just made an opening. I'm getting stressed, and so look at how straight my legs have become. The more stressed I get, the straighter my legs get. It makes it so that I can only basically fall backwards. There we go, a little bit. If I just focused on punching with my legs and keeping my head over my knee all the time, it would take care of which punches to throw. You don't even have to look for an opening. You actually just feel it. See how he's just dipping his head to the side? He's basically doing what he taught me how to do a slip, but only with his head. So he keeps his glove over his jaw and then moves his head out of the way. If you float your glove too far forward, you're actually going to slam your glove into yourself when you get hit. So he's like not putting it directly on his jaw, but not too far out, and then he's moving his head offline so that even as I hit his glove, his head's not right behind it. I like that guard that he's doing right there. He can punch out of it better than I can, but it's a nice guard. Accidentally, like, without even thinking about it a couple of times, I did what has a couple of different names, but one of the names that I like is it's called the log cabin defense, where you basically put both your elbows in front of your face in a like staggered position. I had Giatsakchokchai teach me that because I learned it from him many years ago. So in the Muay Thai Library, go check out the Giatsak session because he actually teaches that guard. And when I say that when you spar and you go under pressure, very old things come out. If you see something old like that, like what Giatsak taught me years ago and I kind of forgot about, that's awesome. That's what training under pressure does, is you actually put things in the bank that consciously you may have forgotten about already. I'm actually really happy with staying in like this. My foot is staying much closer to him. But look how straight that front leg is.
Oh, wow.
Putting it together.